Hello everybody, this is CM Cosman again and I'm back with more cryptozoology. Now, in the last post we discussed cryptozoology and basically what entails cryptozoology. And just to remind you, cryptozoology is the supposed science of the study of unknown animals, and these unknown animals, as we discussed, range from more or less plausible things like undiscovered species of deer living in forests in Asia to like completely weird bullshit such as, I don't know, centaurs supposedly seen in Scotland or whatever. And I argued that these two things need to be separated and each should be discussed in its own field. The one with plausible animals becomes just basic zoology and blind research, and the one with weird animals becomes the source of folklore. Now the second and weird part I want to talk to you more about, because it's home to some of the funniest, coolest and most bizarre folk beliefs you can ever see. In this podcast I'm going to talk to you about the 4 or 5, I don't know how many I got, a few very strange cryptids. Now I'm going to start off with, I just had some printouts ready for you here. I'm gonna start off with something that really freaked the living daylights out of me as a child. I'm gonna give you the Loys Ape. Now, if you know a little about cryptozoology, if you're into this thing, you probably know what this is, but my god, look at the fucking face. This is supposedly a giant orangutan-like ape shot and killed by an explorer named Lloyd or Loys, I don't remember now, you see it in the link description below, in South America. Now you're gonna ask what's so unusual about big ape. There could be many undiscovered big apes. Yeah, but not in South America, because big apes, as you can see in this book, this is an awesome book by the way, the Encyclopedia of Mammals by the MacDonald series, edited by David MacDonald. And in South America basically there are no big apes, there are only New World monkeys, spider monkeys, howler monkeys, that sort of thing. And I'm gonna give you a page preview of them right now. And there are many species of them in South America, but no huge apes. And the picture I just showed you, okay, here's the New World Monkeys page, by the way. As you can see, they live in South America, but they're always monkeys like this, you know, very small-bodied, analogous to squirrels or, I don't know, tree-living things basically, with long, usually prehensile tails. The closest they get to something like a big African ape is with things like this. Where the hell is it? Okay, I got this. With things like this, I mean, this is as ape-like as you can get in South America. This is the cheerful face of the white-faced saki. It's basically, I don't think it's the largest, but it's like the most ape-like of them all. And now you look at the face of this one here. I saw this face as a child in one of the weird mystical phenomena magazines that were common in Turkey, and it scared the hell out of me. And long story short, they supposedly shot this creature while in an expedition. It's more or less plausible. I mean, the jungle down there is huge and there is evolutionarily plausible room for such creatures to evolve from the small monkeys I just showed you. But it turned out to be a fake. It turned out to be a species of spider monkey, a bit like this guy here. Oh, this book's gonna break my back. Anyway, something like that. The guy either cut the tail off or just hid it, and he posed it on a coffee crate. Basically, it's something the size of this box it's sitting on. It's not a crate of bananas, it's not like big like a chest, but it's something like a shoebox. So this was faked, unfortunately. And this is the most plausible thing I'm going to show you today. there are some other cryptids that are so freakishly far out weird that, you know, they're just a delight to talk about and study whether they're real or not. Now, for our next visitor, I'm gonna give you Tranco. Everybody loves Tranco because he's super weird, he's super spastic, and he's the underdog. Tranco is the name given to this creature seen in a duel to death with 2 killer whales off somewhere close to the poles. I don't remember exactly where, I'll give you a link below. And Tranco is this super weird elephant-like creature that was also a bit like a whale and was covered with white fur and had a trunk. And I mean, this is such a weird thing, you know? There's nothing like this in the world's ocean, and there probably nothing was. And there were many theories about what Trunko might be. Some said it was a relative of elephants that had adapted for a life in the ocean. Others said it was like a gigantic marine invertebrate, like a huge worm or a squid thing, I don't know what. And yet others said it was like some specialized form of whale or whatever. I mean, this is so bizarre that you think it's implausible, but at the same time, because it's so strange, there's a tiny plausibility that something like that may have evolved, because it certainly as hell doesn't seem to be a hoax. If it was a hoax, people would usually report like a big snake or I don't know, like reptile, crocodile thing or whatever. So there was a bit of that I want to believe room with Tranco here. Unfortunately, it was never to be, because it's most likely, though not completely proven, that Tranco was a piece of whale fat. Now when big whales die, their whole bodies are covered with fat, so the fat comes off and it washes ashore on beaches or whatever. And if 2 killer whales were like just tossing around with a bit of whale fat, it does look like a white amorphic thing. A bit of flapping tissue in the front could look like a trunk, and it has tassels of like fatty flesh, so that could look like the fur. That could look like fur. So too bad for Tranco. I'm so sad he wasn't real. And moving to a less plausible territory, next up we have the Mongolian death worm. And this guy looks like Mongolian death worm. Looks like he could come from like a heavy metal band. And I have a book inside there that talks about this. Let me just bring it to you. This book, The Unexplained, set out in a fancy X-Files-like layout and visual style, and written once again by our very own Dr. Karl P.N. Shuker, with his indomitable will to believe or to fool, I don't know about that. This book is really fun to read. It's a very accessibly written, illustrated catalog of every weird thing in the world, but it's mostly cryptic centered. It's got like all the world's natural and paranormal mysteries in it, supposedly. I really liked enjoying it. It's got like, where else can you find like the Turin Shroud and I don't know, strange music, demonic music, and then like I don't know, all the weird stuff collected in one big popular volume. And if you read this book the right way, it also works like a vaccination against bullshit. I'm not gonna go too deep into that. I'm just gonna show you the Mongolian death worm article here, if I can find it. Oh, you're gonna take some time with this. Okay. In the chapter about Asia in this book, it says, searching for snowmen and digging for death worms. And here's a nice illustration of the death worm. As you can see, it's such a badass animal that it has not one but 2 deadly attributes. It can spit out acid, and it can give out a shock of electricity from its tail. And it looks like basically something from Tremors. And there are other reports later that say even its touch can melt things. Apparently when the first dinosaur expedition went to Asia in 1936, a guy called Roy Chapman, who later discovered the famous velociraptor, whatever. He heard myths about people talking of these death worms in the sand. Now, the death worm is a tricky one because at first glance, it looks like something cooked up in the mid-90s by some person with an overly active need to believe. But reports of it are supposedly quite old, so you feel like maybe there's something to this. But then again, maybe it's just a folk tradition, or maybe somebody was just fucking around with the explorers who came there. A lot of local myths can be exaggerated and told to Western explorers just and exactly in order to shock and titillate them. And the funny thing is, actually there are animals that look like the death worm. There's some really cool lizard-like things out there called Amphisbaenians. Now I'm going to show you some pictures of those, and you be the guest. You be the judge. Some people suggest that the death worm could be an overtly grown amphisbaenid, and if I can only find a picture of that. Oh wait, an amphisbaenian looks like. I should bookmark these things. Okay, here's one. A giant amphisbaena. This thing looking like a disembodied penis that burrows back and forth in the sand is actually a relative of snakes and lizards, but these guys belong in their own unique family due to weird things going on in their bones. They live exclusively underground. The biggest can grow to nearly a meter long, and they're just basically like very harmless things. But in this book and in many other sources, they say that the Mongolian death worm is actually an overgrown amphisbaenian. And frankly, I don't buy it. I mean, unless somebody brings me a corpse of one, I probably won't be ready to accept its reality. There are also other amphisbaenians, the ones that take the penis lookalike thing even further. And the cutest thing about them is they have like two cute bimble legs in the front, while the rest of the body is like a snake. And I mean, this in itself is weird enough, and it's living with us, and frankly it's way more cooler than the Mongolian death worm. And so our verdict on the death worm is still, probably fake, I don't know. And our final contestant, the weirdest cryptid of all recent times, is just something that's so fucking unbelievable that you have to look at it in terms of sociology and I don't know, maybe sexual insecurity rather than zoology. And I give you Popobawa here, drawn by a supposed eyewitness, by a person in I believe Zanzibar. And man, where should I begin? Popobawa is supposedly a gigantic bat, okay, with one eye. And what he likes to do is he flies crashing in through your windows, and if you're like a young, slick, muscled African guy, he rapes you right there on the spot in your ass. He fully rapes you, and he can also transform into a witch conveniently and make his escape. And while this looks like some severely repressed, like sadomaso gay fantasy, people in the 90s actually had actual panics of Popobawa attacks. In certain instances in Zanzibar, I will give you news links down below, people dared not venture into the streets because Popobawa was out and about and was going his way. Now, if you look at it, look at this thing, for Christ's sake. What can this ever be than the weird sexual insecurity of the many horny men that live out there in those sad parts of the world? Now, if you're from Zanzibar and listening, don't take offense, but in those parts of the world, people still haven't come to terms with sexuality. Genders are usually segregated. Women are either protected as precious belongings or plundered when they're not guarded. So, it's more likely for the darkness in human soul and the darkness all men have inside to come out, rather than to have a one-eyed bat wizard flying about and reaming people up the ass. I mean, that's just so hilarious. And anyway, to make short of the long story, in a sliding scale, I tried to present to you the full spectrum of cryptozoology. You got like somewhat believable animals to weird unclassifiable things like Trunko, and like to completely strange things like the death worm. And then on the very ultraviolet end of the spectrum, you have got things straight out of, I don't know, Freud's kitchen or whatever, and they are like living examples of myths. So this was a sampling of cryptozoology. I don't have many grand comments to make about the whole discipline this time, except from the one insight I have is that I believe in these animals, the desire to find these animals, specifically these animals, comes from a very human desire to prove himself, to find somebody, to find something that nobody else has found. It's a bit like the same instinct that keeps us betting on the lottery even though our odds are insignificant. What if I am the one? What if I find it? What if it comes to me? What if I come out with it and become famous? And I think this is what drives many of the so-called cryptozoology researchers out there. It's just the desire to be right for once in their lives and to come back with something that changes things for everybody. Well, I wouldn't know about you, but don't put your chances too strong on many of these cryptids. I think they're just useful to study as the richness of human culture. And the way we study science is also human culture. The same desires that drive man to invent myths also drives other men to invite scientific myths. Anyways, I could get carried the whole night with this, but there were my second 4 cents or 2 cents about cryptozoology. Stay safe everybody, and don't let flying Batman rape you.